If they were going to touch you, they should have touched you before God put his hand on you. I had the craziest dream last night, and I usually don't share dreams, but keep in mind that God will use symbolism in your dream that you understand to help you give a word that is corporate. So last night I had this dream that it is the last day that I ever spent with my ex-husband, and that day in reality was very dangerous, and he had tried to me, and I can play that day vividly in my head over and over if I wanted to. But I have this dream where it's happening differently, and it's happening in the spirit, and it's very strange. But I realized that I need to get my kids and I need to go. And I'm packing the suitcase, and I knew that I had thought about it before that day, and we had even tried to get away like through a woman's program at a time, which really angered him. And my mama ended up coming instead. And as I am thinking about this, I'm in this dream, but in this dream, I take another path. I call a cabin, and I think even though it's so late at night and checkout's at 11 o'clock, if I can just pack all my kids' stuff, then we will be okay, and I got to get them out of here. And in this dream, he had something dangerous in his hand, and he's just screaming at me. The more I pack, the more he screams, but also the more he screams and the more I pack, the more pearls and jewels begin to show up on my sweater. And I actually have an anthropology shirt that I get compliments on every time I wear it, but I don't wear it often because it's hard to wear. Why is it hard to wear, you ask? Because it is covered in pearls and rhinestones and also mixed with patterns of mesh and patterns of silk. And it's so beautiful, and it looks wonderful for meetings under a blazer, but it's very hard for me to hug people because I'm going to snag that woman's sweater, or I might even snag my own shirt. And I don't buy things like that often, but I'll buy pieces that go into a capsule wardrobe for when I'm out and I'm working. But nobody knows how hard it is to wear that shirt when they compliment it and want to go buy one. And I always want to tell them, yeah, but you might rethink it because it's so beautiful. But if anybody touches you, you might ruin their clothing, or you might ruin your own. Nobody knows how hard it is to wear that shirt. And that might sound like it's just about a shirt, but the more that I got screamed at, and the more I'm trying to get out of this house, the more I'm packing, the more my sweater is being laden down with all of these jewels. And pearls have a significance to me that I don't like, because anytime that he would do something wrong or a holiday would be coming up, he would cover it with pearls or cover it with something pretty. And the Bible says don't cast your pearls before swine, and I never really thought about that before. But I think about it now that I don't like pearls because it reminds me of a time in my life that wasn't so wonderful. And this, you just have to take the symbolism for what it is in your life, because God speaks to us in ways that we can understand. But I remember feeling bad for him as all of these jewels began to appear on me, and I didn't place them there, because I remember thinking, you should have touched me before God had his hand on me. You should have touched me before God had his hand on me, because I've watched God hand out vengeance. Not that I want God to hand out vengeance, but I've watched it to a space with my own father where I would ask the Lord to stop because it was just too much, and my shepherd's heart began to feel bad for him. So what's the message for you in this dream? It's not about me. It's not about my life. It's not about what it was about. What it is about is that a lot of times people will antagonize you. And in the antagonize, you keep your character. In the antagonize, you keep your peace. In the antagonize, you keep going towards your purpose. In the antagonize, they don't know that the Lord has already picked you out, because all that they could see is whatever their demons see. But you keep going, and you are storing up your treasures in heaven, but also the Lord has given you favor. And it reminds me of Elijah when he goes up the mountain, because he thinks that Jezebel and Ahab are out to get him. And trust and believe, I've had a lot of Jezebels and Ahabs that work together in my life. But what they've never done is win. And it's always been a space where you're like, can't you just leave us alone? Can't you just stop? Can't you just not? Because if there's something I love is peace, and if you're beefing with me, you are beefing alone, because I have things to do. And maybe you feel that way too. But Elijah eventually realizes that he has to go up that mountain and do what God called him to do, because it's not what it appears. And they were trying to touch Elijah before Elijah realized who he was, before Elijah realized that he wasn't alone and that his sweater wasn't covered in full of beautiful stones. And in his case, those beautiful stones was knowing that not all of the prophets were goners. He wasn't alone, and he could climb up Mount Carmel, and he could go up and do business with the demons who had been plaguing him for so very long. This isn't a God's going to strike them down word. This is a word that if you ever learned a hard lesson, you know how hard it is to learn when God tried to warn you over and over. This is that. This ain't a God's going to strike them down. This ain't a God go get them. This is one of those words where you just start to feel bad for people because you know what it's like to not listen and not turn around. And you know that it's the spirit in the person, not the person. Keep walking in your peace. Keep knowing that God is bedazzling your sweater. And even though it gets heavier and heavier, know that that protection does too. The Lord has got you, and the Lord can handle them too. He loves them just as much as he loves you, but he chastises those that he loves, and nobody knows that better than somebody who has been chastised before. You've got this. Keep going, and don't let the devil stop you just because he don't like what you're doing, and he uses people to tell you that.